Hello, and welcome to Conversations with Alexis. I am your host, Alexis Alexander. I am thrilled today to have with me Mr. Jay Barnett. He has an absolutely amazing and fascinating story. I know it will encourage our heart and give us strength and courage for the journey. I want to introduce him to you briefly, and we'll jump right into our conversation. Jay Barnett is a former professional football player turned author, speaker, and now marriage and family therapist. With over 10 years of highly skilled and acclaimed mentoring and success stories, public speaking, and real life in the trenches business experience, Jay Barnett's views are radically different, and he shares with his mentees that leadership is a moment-to-moment choice and not about titles and positions. He's the author of the best-selling books for our young kings and queens, and he's penned poignant letters creating conversations of healing, self-love, self-worth, confidence, and personal victories. Jay is on board to release his highly anticipated new book, Identity Crisis, a discussion around social media impact on personal identity. Jay is full of life experience and a wealth of knowledge, and we want to glean from him today. So today, without further ado, I want to welcome Mr. Jay Barnett. Hello, sir. How are you?
How you doing? All right. Thank you for having me.
Very good. Very good. Like I said, I think you have an amazing story, and I just wanted to share it with people. I shared a brief bio, and I found out about you social media. I think I saw one of your videos or one of your posts, and just was really inspired and encouraged and love your journey to where you are now. So before we jump into that, I've read the bio, and it gives us a glimpse of who you are. But tell us something beyond those words that we may not know about you.
Oh man, I think the bio, of course, always gives us a understanding of kind of like the titles of what we do, but not necessarily who we are. And so I think for me, just really an individual that is striving to leave a legacy, striving to build people while I'm here.
Yeah.
Life is a very short journey. And I feel like it's a short journey to not live in your purpose, and it's also a long journey to be miserable. So you could choose between the two lessons. And so I think for myself, I'm just excited that God chose me, and He's continued to expand my territory and my platform to be able to provide insight, wisdom, and to really just provide individuals with a deeper understanding of who they are and who they can become. So this is fun for me. I tell clients all the time, man, if you're not having fun, you might want to reassess what you're doing. But I have fun, so this is fun.
Absolutely, that's awesome, and so important because you spend so much of your time, of your life working. You would want to enjoy those 8+ hours a day. So I think you have like I said, an interesting and divine journey. I want to start with the man before I talk about the mission and the purpose of the man. Mm-hmm. Tell us about young Jay.
Man.
Some things happen in childhood that helped shape you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the young Jay, my parents divorced when I was 13. So I'm the son of a pastor. Mm-hmm. My dad pastored 30 years. Actually, he has a birthday tomorrow.
Wow.
And so he'd be 62.
Uh-huh.
And so I think the young Jay got disappointed early on and experienced a lot of hurt because I did ministry with my dad.
Wow.
So I preached my first sermon at 9 years old. I was doing a call to worship.
Okay.
So I was this phenom kid at the age of 9, traveling all over Mississippi preaching. And so my parents would take me on my speaking engagements. Mm-hmm. So, growing up in church, it was, I had this way of life, right? I enjoyed church. I was a kid. I was filled with the Spirit at the age of 9. So I was speaking in tongues, laying hands and praying on people. So that was the young Jay.
Church. Okay.
And so I was in church. Mm-hmm. So my dad was Baptist and my mom was Pentecostal. So very interesting dynamic. And I think when they divorced for the first time that I had actually experienced what pain really was. Because I couldn't talk about it and couldn't really articulate it. I'm 13, but I just knew like, wow, man, this hurts. And so I think for me, it was, it really changed my perspective on life and even shifted my perspective on God at the time, because I'm like, God, why are you doing this to my family? But you're a kid, right? You don't know. And
Exactly.
so that was a young Jay.
Hmm.
And I had such a faith and belief in God that was just unreal.
Yeah.
I think my experience with praying and believing God for a miracle, I had a hole in my eardrum as a kid. And
Wow.
so I was pretty much, I was 50% deaf in my left ear.
Wow.
And
Okay.
so I had multiple surgeries
Hmm.
for them to place tubes in my ear to kind of increase my hearing
Right.
ability. And the hole in my eardrum just would not close, and which was going to really bring about some major challenges. So I
Hmm.
remember telling the doctor, I said, man, he says, you know, we're going to have to do this surgery. And
Hmm.
I said, man, I didn't want to do surgery. I'd already had one. And
Uh-huh.
I said, well, I'm just going to pray about it. And I said, God is going to heal me.
Yeah.
Doctor looked at my mom. He was like, oh, cute kid. so,
Wow. Okay.
so
Okay.
so, you know, I prayed and I said, Mom, God is going to heal me. So I went through that, and probably I had a 2 month checkup.
Mm-hmm.
And on the 2 month checkup, they go back in and look at to see had the hole gotten bigger or closed. But
Right.
anyway, the hole had closed.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay.
So, and the doctor was like, they were just astonished. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I mean, they
Hmm.
were just like, wow.
Right.
And I looked at the doctor and I said, I told you guys
So,
were going to heal
right.
me.
That cute
So for
prayer
the first
work. Okay.
time, yeah. So I experienced God moving in my life very early on.
Awesome.
But I think the divorce really broke me down, because what I had to learn as I got older,
Hmm.
God doesn't cause people to divorce, people divorce.
Absolutely.
So, and of course, you know, the whole nother story. But for
Hmm.
me, that really kind of set my life, and I fell into deep depression as a kid
Wow.
because I no longer had my father to look up to, and
Right.
I admired him when I was a kid because
Hmm.
my dad was everything that I wanted to be, and
Hmm.
still in some aspects. You know, he was a pastor, he could
Yeah.
sing,
Yeah.
he was a gospel recording artist. He played football,
Well.
and he turned down his opportunities to play professionally. And I mean, and so, and my uncles and cousins did. So when he left the picture, I lost,
Oh. Yeah.
I lost hope
Hmm. Hmm.
in my model, right? And so
Right.
I think
Right.
that was the experience, and you know, and I hope that provides people enough
Yeah.
context to kind of understand my life as a kid.
Right.
And so, but my parents believed
Uh-huh.
in me. They knew I was called
Hmm.
by God, and my parents cultivated my gift. My
Right.
dad let me spoke at church often. My
Hmm.
mom, you know, I mean, so my parents, you know, were amazing people as individuals, you know. But later on, I learned they weren't good for each other. So,
Right. Right.
but yeah, that's kind of a backstory of what shaped me as a kid,
Young Jay.
and to really to dig a little deeper,
Hmm.
that often parents don't realize how much divorce impacts kids.
The kid.
Not only does it impact the way a kid sees himself, it
Hmm.
also impacts the way they see life and view the world.
That's true. That's
And
true.
that's the part that really challenges, because now you're not only impacting your child as a child, but you're impacting who they become as an
Mhm.
adult.
Well, that's true. That is
Because many of us didn't really learn what our parents' issues were until we became adults.
right. Right. Hmm.
So, and I'll stop there.
No, it's good. It's good. That's why I'm quiet. I'm just listening. I get it. And you put such a good lens on it, might be too, because you're a therapist now, but you see a different perspective.
Yeah,
But I think that's so important, because I think they just think I got to get out of this marriage. You don't think about what it's actually doing to the
right.
child, and like you said, not just now, but in the future. That was really deep. So you walked us through the part where, and I didn't realize, I thought you were a minister, but I didn't know. No, okay,
Don't tell anybody.
okay.
I
Our
was
podcast secret. Okay.
I was supposed to be ordained in July, but COVID happened.
Wow.
And yeah, my bishop, yeah, we've been working on it for probably a year.
Okay.
And kind of again for me, ministry is and this is my own
Yeah.
personal challenge with it. And I tell my bishop all the time, I was like, man,
Mhm.
I don't want to be boxed in, you
Right.
know. because
right.
what I do is already ministry.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? I
Uh-huh.
think counseling is a ministry of the spirit. You know what I mean? And so, that's just my thoughts with it. But just to give the people that, because I always want people to know that, man.
Mhm. Yeah.
You can have this desire, but also have real feelings about it, right?
Right.
I think
Right.
that's human, right? To have certain
Yeah. Absolutely.
anxieties, and that's my anxiety about it. So,
Yeah. Well, it flows out of you. That's why I
yeah,
just in your regular conversation. But okay.
yeah.
So we have young Jay who has um, experienced this life altering situation with your parents getting a divorce. And I'm assuming you went to live with your mom.
Yeah, yeah.
And so now we're high school, um, almost college age, Jay, and you pick up a love for something, that football. Tell
Right.
us about that and what void it filled or what it did.
So, uh, wow, you're making me really to go back. So, this is good. It's too early, but this is perfect timing. I'm
Okay.
teasing. Uh, so, I think so. My mom comes home one day with a U-Haul truck, and
Mhm.
she says, "We're going to Texas."
Mhm. Mhm.
And we load up the truck, and my two sisters and
Yep.
her. My mom drives from Mississippi to Texas.
Wow.
And to this day, man, my sisters are like we're all close, and
Mhm.
so we
Mhm.
talk often how
Mhm.
we would never forget that day.
Wow.
My sister's holding a picture of my dad, and
Mhm.
she's just bawling, man, because
Mhm.
my sisters, man, they love my dad. They're
Yeah.
daddy's girl.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to them, like, man, I got y'all, and
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm gonna be here for you guys, and that Jay. So I'll tell you this: the Jay that got in the truck
Uh-huh.
in Mississippi was not the same person that got out of the truck when we got to Texas.
Wow. That's big.
So, and it's deep because now there's a maladaptive personality that I have to create
Yeah. Yeah.
now because I'm in a new environment
Mhm.
and I no longer have the covering of dad.
Right. And you
So
man.
now that responsibility falls on me because
Exactly.
I have a mother who believes in my gifts spiritually.
Yeah.
My mother relied on me for from hearing from God.
Mhm. Mhm.
My mom is a seer,
Mhm.
and I don't if people know because sometimes like if I say I have a clairvoyant gift, people take that in a very different connotation. So I'll say I have a prophetic gift. So
Okay.
my
Mhm.
mother would often rely on me. What are you hearing from
Mhm.
God? What do you
Right.
see? So
Right.
I had all of this responsibility
Mhm.
to manage the emotions of three women
As a young man.
as a 13-year-old
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's
while not having the opportunity to even process my own feelings from it.
mhm. Mhm.
So the day I hit Texas and I'm at this school, Grapevine High School, and
Mhm.
I'm like, man, I'm going to play football. And I played football in Mississippi when I was 7th, 8th grade, but
Okay.
it was kind of like I was doing it because everybody else was doing it. And then I come
Okay.
from a family of professional athletes. So,
Okay.
hey, you're Barnett, so you got
Mhm.
to play football.
Mhm.
But when I got to Texas, football was like, nah, this is something that I need. So
Wow.
I remember the first day I go out, I play running back. The first day in
Mhm.
pads, the first day in pads, they hand the ball off to me and I'm running and I
Mhm.
run this kid over and breaks his collarbone.
Wow.
So I break this kid collarbone and they was just like, hey man, you gonna pick him up? I was like, man, forget that kid. I didn't care.
Yeah.
That's when I knew then, but now looking back on it,
Mhm.
it was anger.
Yeah. Yeah.
When I saw that kid, I saw my dad.
Wow. Wow.
And so for me, football became this drug that I had to have
Mm.
because it suppressed
Okay.
on one end, but it
Yeah.
also provided an outlet from another.
Wow.
Because on one end, I didn't want to talk about what we had just experienced, but then on
Mhm.
the other end, I wanted to get out the frustration.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So from a mental health standpoint, you hold both spaces.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know what I mean? I
Yep.
hold it,
Yep.
you know what I mean? So, not to get too deep clinically, but
Mhm.
so that is what really kind of kept me. And my mom remarried, and I'll just kind of brush through it because this is my
Yeah.
story. So
Okay.
my mom remarried, and she remarried another preacher. Go
Wow.
figure.
Okay.
And
Okay.
this guy here was the the epitome of narcissistic if you've
Wow.
ever seen one. He's very
Wow. Okay.
manipulative.
Mhm.
He told my family that I was possessed because I knew who he was.
And you
And
could see, yeah.
I can see it.
Mhm.
And I told my mom, this is not a good man.
Mhm.
And so she married him. He was very physically abusive to me. He would come
Wow.
in my room at night and beat on me and,
Wow.
always talking about how I'm going to make you tough. I'm going to make you a man.
Mhm.
And he would always say these things about my mom to me. And he put
Mhm.
the family against me so bad to
Wow.
where I moved out uh, the end of my sophomore year and I moved into with a white family
Wow. Okay.
that became my guardian. And
Okay.
so Woody and Shirley Marr, that they're still very close to me to this day.
Okay.
Um, and they took me in, and for the first time, I actually saw a representation of
Mhm.
family because,
Wow. Mhm.
because we would eat together, and they would ask me, how is my um, how are things going, and
Right. Right.
about football and school.
Mhm.
And my at the time, my mom was so entrenched into this marriage that
Right.
she
Yeah.
couldn't see my
Right.
pain.
Right.
So as I grew older, I had to forgive her for that
Yeah.
phase
Yeah. Yeah.
because she was in a space as well that she could not process. And
Mhm.
I would probably suspect that you've been married 15 years, you've been a first lady for the majority of your marriage, and
Yeah.
all you know is happening for the first time.
Yeah.
You're trying to figure it out, and this guy comes along, and you're like, "Hey, he's gonna help me out with my kids." I get it,
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
and but on one end, it pushed me deeper into a depression, and so I've been suicidal since, oh my gosh, 10th grade.
Wow. Wow.
So I dealt with so many issues,
Mhm.
but when I was out on the field, man, on Friday nights, oh my gosh, it was
Yeah.
freedom.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for many men,
Mhm.
sports becomes a place of freedom. It's a
Yeah.
safe haven.
Yeah.
You can be free. There's
Mhm.
no worries. You're not concerned about mom. You're not concerned about your sisters, the
Right.
hood,
Right.
your uncles, your grandmama. You're not. You just for the first time, I had the opportunity to just. I'm fascinated with eagles.
Mhm.
I always felt like it was this. I was an eagle just flying on Friday nights and
Wow.
Saturdays. So for me, when football came to an end, going through from college to pursuing a pro career,
Right.
I found myself back in that challenge
Mhm.
because now I didn't have my coping mechanism. It was how I
Mhm.
cope.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So it was I medicated through that
Mhm.
because football provided a sense of brotherhood.
Mhm.
But then also most of the coaches were like father figures, and
Right. Right.
and there's so many angles to really extend this conversation for men.
Yeah.
We don't even have enough time.
Uh-huh.
But that's why a lot of black males are attracted to sports
Right. Right.
because it provides a sense of structure,
Right.
but also it provides a opportunity to be guided
Mm.
because we all as boys
Mhm.
want to be validated by dad.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so what happened is that these coaches validates us. And so
Mhm.
when you don't have that anymore and you don't have a great relationship with your father, you find yourself like, man, how do I process
Oh.
this? And
Right.
how do I do it?
Mhm.
So I attempt suicide, early 20s and then again in late 20s,
Mhm.
and finally make the decision to enter into therapy and to really take my healing seriously.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so it's kind of have led me to this journey. And if
Mhm.
you'd have asked me I'm 38 now, if you'd have asked me at 28 that I would be a therapist and working in mental health, writing books and speaking, I would be like, I would look at you and laugh and be like, man, get out of here.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Because it was not anything that I had an interest in
Right. Right.
because I just wanted to play football,
Mhm.
build a life, and just
Mhm.
get married. Like that's what I wanted my life to be.
Right.
But
Right.
God had a plan, and
Absolutely.
God took my life, and here I am. So
Absolutely. And didn't let you put a period on the story. He put a comma
yeah,
where
yeah, he put
you
multiple commas behind the story.
yeah.
It's like
Absolutely.
I'm thinking like, all right, this is it. He's like, oh, no comma here. And I'm
Right.
like, all right, well, maybe here, no comma there. And I'm just like, all right.
Okay.
So
You walked,
all of these run-on sentences.
but we'll take it because you're still here.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah, I'm still here.
let them run on. Let them run on. You walked right through our program. Well, my questions, because I find it so interesting that there was a void of your dad, and then football took that void, and then when football was over, there's just this void, and you were like,
Boy, yeah.
I'm out. And I think that's so huge. I've talked to a few counselors this season about you taking priority or taking over your healing process.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to be intentional. You have to want to come out of this. And
right.
So what happened if you're at the point or brink of suicide, and then you come to the place of, I call it coming to yourself, like the prodigal son.
Yeah, spiritual awakening.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's a spiritual awakening.
Okay.
Yeah, it most definitely is.
Good deal.
Yeah. And I think for me, if that's the question, right? How did I get to the spiritual awakening or to that? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. But I think
that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think for me, really, Alexis, is just really, it's so. Let me see how I want to say this.
Okay. Take your time.
Yeah. Let me see how I want to say this.
Okay.
I'm off today, so I got time.
Okay. Go ahead.
So I want to make sure I process.
Okay.
So for me, the last time I attempted suicide was a drug overdose.
Mm-hmm.
So I can remember waking up and everything was pitch black.
Wow. Sorry.
And I'll stop right there. And so I heard the voice of God say, "This is the last time that I will save you."
Wow.
I heard that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is the last time.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard him say, "I have a plan for you if you trust me."
Mm-hmm.
But you have to trust me, literally.
Okay.
And so that was my spiritual awakening. But the awakening that I had to have within myself was to believe that there was purpose beyond the field.
Oh, very good. Very good. Mm-hmm.
That I had to buy into that there was a reason that I was born beyond just being a football player.
Absolutely.
That there was a reason that I was born than just carrying on the family legacy or the family name of being a Barnett, that you play ball.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I had to buy into that God has something for me.
Absolutely.
That I may not know what it is, but if I stay on this journey, I will not find it, but I will discover it.
Wow, that's good. Mm-hmm.
Because I think oftentimes we're looking to find our purpose rather than looking to discover our purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Because see, when you look to discover your purpose, it gives you an opportunity to explore.
Right.
So, and I'll tell you my journey to discovering what that was, right? I had been doing youth services as a kid, speaking to young people.
Yeah.
Every time there was a youth service, they were always like, "Hey, Pastor Barnett, can we get your son to come speak to our young people?" So that was what I did as a kid. Right. Now, fast forward later on in life, not realizing that I had built a business called Beast Mode Incorporated, where I trained young athletes, NFL, NBA, college, high school, male and female.
Wow.
And I had hundreds of kids that were part of my program. And through that program, the mission for my program or company name was not to just build an athlete to be physically adept, but someone to be mentally stable. Awesome. Because what I saw was that life itself was a game. And if you were not mentally prepared and mentally stable and mentally equipped, you could not win.
That's good.
Because here's what happened to me. My physical abilities no longer serve me outside of football.
Wow.
Now, I look good.
Yeah.
I look good aesthetically, right? I still look like a ball player, but it did not no longer serve me in the arena because I could not work a job there was no job where it allowed you to run and sprint, hit people. But because this is, but again, this is what I came to cope and
Right.
run.
Right.
It's almost like when you take somebody into drug rehab. One of the
Mm-hmm.
things is
Wow.
not see. Everybody thinks, well, I have to get them off drugs. No, you have to deal with the reason or why they feel they need the drug.
Wow. Okay. Okay. That's good. That's
Because see,
good.
if I deal with the reason why you need it, eventually that's what will help you to walk away from it because
Right.
it's choice.
Right. Right.
So for me, removing football, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because see, it wasn't so much that I couldn't play. It was like, no, I don't have the space anymore to cry. I
Wow.
don't have the space anymore to just vent. I don't
Yeah.
have the space anymore because I believe this as
Mm-hmm.
men,
Uh-huh.
as men, and I think as a society, it's like we have to create a space to how do we get men to understand that their masculinity
Yeah.
can be managed rather than having them feel that their masculinity is a weapon and it
Mm-hmm.
works against them. Because
Wow.
again, you cannot have masculinity without testosterone.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
testosterone, so in that space, I
Yeah.
would say every male possess aggressive abilities and a nature.
Wow. Okay.
So
Okay.
the key is not to get the man to not function in his nature, but it is to teach him and equip him um, on how to manage his nature.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean? And
Uh-huh.
so in
That's
that
good.
space, it gives him the opportunity to understand that who I am
Mm-hmm.
doesn't work against me, but who I am works for me. Because
Absolutely.
oftentimes men feel like their masculinity works against them
Mm-hmm.
in the spaces to where if a man gets upset, he kind of gets a little rowdy and people are
Right.
like, oh, he's going to tear up something. It's like, what else do you expect testosterone to do?
Exactly. It's got to have a release. Yes.
It's got to have a release.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
the great thing about it, right, is that God was so smart because he
Mm-hmm.
didn't give women that. He gave them estrogen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, but if we have more conversation and dialogue like this, I understand that who we are and our makeup is not the enemy
Right. Right.
because we'll often see the man masculinity, he's the enemy. Or
Mm-hmm.
we see the woman ability to be emotional, which is our estrogen levels increases or provides that. She's
Mm-hmm.
the enemy because he says she's too emotional and she
Right.
says that he's
Too
too
hard.
aggressive.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
too hard.
Yeah.
So to understand that, no, you're not too hard.
Mm-hmm.
You're just who you are and
Thank
how
you.
you in your nature.
Right. Right.
But I have to work in that space to have an understanding of how does that work for me.
Right. Right.
So in that space, for me, it brought me to understand,
Mm-hmm.
okay, what's going on, Jay?
Mm-hmm.
Reason why you feel that you can't function without ball.
Mm-hmm.